You cannot deceive a person all the time. You can deceive them once or twice, but after that, it becomes ludicrous. And this is what's happening in the UK, with Brexit, in Greece, all around Europe. It's really easy to manipulate. Political scandals are constantly on the TV, and that takes time away from real, structural and democratic issues such as major unemployment, large-scale migration, and an unsustainable social welfare system. Instead of talking about these issues, we are always talking about corruption, clientelism, and family scandals. So, how present are politicians in everyone's daily life? Very present. But are politicians in touch with the daily life of the people? Not at all. So here is the key message. Our political elites are not devoted to real democratic change, ensuring full respect for human rights and democratization of society. I actually do not trust that the government works in the best interests of the people. They don't even know what the interests of the people are. You cannot deceive a person. It is always about the time. Who is on which side? You can deceive them. Who is on the right and who is on the left. But after that, and they fail to notice that people are hungry, poor, and leaving this country. Our past is marked by violence, war-related violence. Civic engagement is failing to notice all wars. For instance, it is very important, especially in Syria and Africa. They have the sense that they cannot make it in this country. Wars have nothing to do with her. They are not even trying to engage with society. Not even trying to find a job, as if they could find a job anyway. But the worrying part is that this generation is even more apolitical and right-winged than previous generations. The face of Europe is changing. Not engaging in any kind of civil disobedience. The face of Europe is changing. Or protests. In places with a lack of civil society activities, a lack of different forms of activism, and a lack of cultural life, you see a growing conservatism among the youth, which also causes a lack of willingness to change things. I would also say that most political parties still believe that civic participation in political life happens only once every 4 years, and that's it. You often hear politicians saying, "You have given us your trust to govern this country, so now leave us alone to do what we came here to do." What this actually means is shut up for the next 4 years. The concept of civil engagement in political issues is unknown, unaccepted, and not promoted by the media or politicians. Some political hypocrisy. It is a completely conservative society that is used to believing in a totalitarian regime is really easy to manipulate. Our institutions are too weak to preserve democracy or to guarantee human rights. And then, instead of talking about these issues that we take for granted, always talking about some democratic standards can be diminished in a few days. This is why collecting relevant information about what has happened in the previous war prevents manipulation of the events. Such manipulations have been used to homogenize people in their hatred towards other ethical groups for very obvious political reasons. Our political elites are not devoted to real democratic change, ensuring such manipulations of the recent past create a very dangerous space for future conflicts. A lack of different forms of activism to homogenize people in their lack of cultural life, other ethnic and remembering the past, very conservative political among youth, which causes a lack of willingness such manipulation on the places with the gross violations and activities is often a lack of different forms of activism marked today by violence, a lack of cultural life, war-related violence. You see a growing conservatism among structural violence, which also causes a political violence.
So it is very important to know the value of documenting, of valuing difficult memories people have. It is important to know that they have been confronted with many violations and might still be traumatized.
It is important to know that rights have not been respected.
We keep struggling with unfinished wars. I believe that memory is precious and part of acknowledgement. I believe that dealing with the past and remembering the past has to do with breaking the cycle of violence. You see, the data on crimes and gross violations in the past is often misused in political quarrels today. It is also important to know that we felt abandoned and forgotten. We received no attention for the war or its consequences, neither from the European Union nor from other international institutions.
Like an overlooked child.
I find it really striking that Europe is failing to notice all wars. For instance, those currently fought in Syria and Africa.
Too often, Europe behaves like wars have nothing to do with her. We are interconnected in a global environment.
Of course these wars have to do with her. Liberal democracy! There is a lot of hypocrisy in politics when we talk about real devotion to what they call European values.
Peace itself is not a European value by virtue of being European.
We've violated peace so many times. You as a colonial power, we as a small nation, and now we are seeing that many European countries,
those currently under the pressure of EU problems, like the refugee crisis,
are changing the face of Europe that has been so attractive. The Association of Democratic States, with high standards of human rights, rising standards of social security, high levels of tolerance. It's changing.
We are witnessing the changes within the old European democracies,
and it fills us with insecurity and fear. Being in an illiberal democracy is not something that is imminent only for the periphery of Europe.
It is something that is happening in many other European countries.
And these things that are going on in Greece and Portugal, Spain, Croatia and Italy cannot be solved technocratically with the Troika and other non-transparent, undemocratic forums. They should be resolved by envisioning and reinventing the European Union as a community of people. The problems of the periphery are actually the problems of the whole European Union. The question is, how do we distribute goods in a way that people in the European Union can meet their needs and live with dignity? But also, how we treat our economic relations with other countries, and how we produce crises within our global economic politics, which then come back to us in the reflection of the refugee crisis.
I came to the conclusion that what they call the refugee crisis is actually a crisis of rule of law.
The real problem with the refugee crisis is
that it is not the right wording. It is not the right way to describe what's happening.
We don't have a crisis induced by refugees. There is a crisis induced by European political leaders not being completely aware and not understanding the real value of humanitarian law.
Human right to life, personal safety,
For all those things
sexual
that we consider
preferences,
human rights,
water,
we believe that everyone,
healthcare,
whether they are European or not European, by the mere fact of being human, should have access to these rights. In the long term, the violation of human rights can have a really devastating effect on society as a whole. And we were refugees just 20 years ago. We were in the same situation. These are also people who just fled their home with one bag. You cannot deceive a person all the time. What this actually means, you can deceive especially for the next 4 years. Twice. But the worrying after that, they have the sense some political parties
which inherited nationalistic views
tried to homogenize the voters by spreading hate towards different ethnical groups and minorities. Such policies result in severe and negative consequences for all.
A lack of genuineness is a source of populism.
On the other hand, if you have genuineness, you have solidarity, support, and vision. We believe in an open, tolerant, and plural society based on full respect, protection, and promotion of human rights.
At the end, the European Union emerged from such tendencies to overcome the consequences of horrible wars.
And I think society is ripe to discuss how to achieve some political system that would be more sensible to social justice. One that will talk about distribution. One that doesn't produce this minority of rich people.
The key is the really small and simple act of asking people, what do you really want?
How do you envisage the social contract? What are your responsibilities towards the state, and what does the state need to offer you? Because
you cannot deceive a person all the time. You can deceive them once or twice, but after that it becomes ludicrous.
And this is what's happening in the UK,
society
with Brexit, in Greece, all around Europe.
It's really easy to manipulate.
Political scandals are constantly on the TV, and that takes time away from real, structural and democratic issues such as major unemployment, large-scale migration, and an unsustainable social welfare system. Instead of talking about these issues, we are always talking about corruption, clientelism, and family scandals.